Hey y'all, welcome back to the Drunk Turkey Show. I'm your host Daniel J. Last night we had a live video. I want to thank everybody that was a part of that. If you haven't checked it out, please go check it out. It was great. Me, Blue, and Hyman had a great conversation. And answered some phone calls. But while we were on the air, or a little bit afterwards, some news broke about Bethany Funke, the um, the other surviving roommate who really we haven't really got much information on. And so we finally got a little bit of information from her and her side of the story of her account that that morning when the bodies were found. But before we go into that, I want to talk to you guys a little bit something that is important to me. It's our channel partner, Data Seal. Basically, long story short, if you ever have any concern about your personal privacy or um, you know people finding your information on the web, whether it's your address, phone number, name, things of that nature. Take a drink. Check out DataSeal. They're able to. They've developed an automated data removal solution that deletes your personal information from over 70 people's search sites and data brokers. Use the link in the description and in the comments to get 5% off of your subscription. So give them a check out. And if it's in something that's interesting to you or you can find useful, protect your privacy, by all means. And so, what we're going to be talking about is so last night on Ashley Banfield, another source comes forward, this time a source close to the family, reported the accounts of that morning. Uh, we'll read on. It says, per News Nation, Bethany Funke and Dylan Mortenson were the survivors of the University of Idaho murders allegedly committed by Bryan Kohberger. A source close to the families of the Idaho victims told News Nation that Funke was not among those who discovered the bodies. She was the only one living in the basement at the house and apparently never went upstairs after the incident. It's unclear whether Funke currently resides, and according to our source, she has not had any communication with the families or the families of the victims. And so, Ashley also went on to state that um, she never went upstairs, that she was amongst the crowd of students that were outside when the police had arrived. So there's not a lot on Bethany when it comes to the probable cause affidavit. And I know a lot of folks seem to point to that to think that perhaps because there was a lot said about Dylan Mortenson in that probable cause affidavit, that there would be a lot that Bethany said as well. And it's just being held on to. I don't believe that's the case. I do not. In fact, I believe that that probable cause affidavit, as lengthy as it is probably majority of the information or the evidence that the police knew about at the time. They've not hidden how they were able to find Bryan Kohberger. They used Dylan Mortenson's vague description and knowing that they had a white Elantra without a front license plate, and they played the elimination game. They looked at everybody who was in the area who was registered a white Elantra with the two universities, and based on those, they looked at the registered owners of those vehicles to find somebody of the matching height and weight, and they just the plausibility of elimination there. Now, I'm sure Bryan Kohberger wasn't the only one that they were investigating that matched his, the description of the suspect. Now, they probably were watching him, and then, they got the warrant for his cell phone records, and they realized that he's been in that area for a while. And then they watch him. They have the knife sheath and the DNA on it already. They just need to they need to find somebody to test, the DNA too. They get the trash, from Kohberger's parents' house. And we're able to confirm that Bryan Kohberger was a match to the DNA by his father's DNA left on the trash. And so it's been lined out pretty simple. I like to think that, and early on, I thought that they had a lot more information, that his name came up and this, that, and a third. But the more that comes out of this, the more I look at this, I think it's almost all there, y'all. Um, Now, what's not also in there is the stuff that happened after that probable cause affidavit was written. I mean, we're looking at the search of the Elantra, the results of what was found in his apartment, and at his parents' house. They did a search there, and so we don't know what was the conclusion of those things. Also, you don't forget the computer tower. That was another one, and so there could be a lot more damning information on there that we just aren't aware of. I think that when you look at this from in a whole, it seems like they got the right guy. I think they did. Now proving beyond reasonable doubt is where we're at this point. He's been arrested. He's been charged. He's not made a plea yet. That'll happen. And but all accounts, he seems eager to want to fight this. And so it appears though that we're going to get a trial, and we're going to see what both sides have to say. But when it comes to this, part to Bethany, it sounds like she just fell asleep and didn't wake up until the morning. Like I was telling you, like I said last night on the live, my theory is that Dylan walked out, yelled, all right, at the noise that she heard coming from Ethan and Xana's room, that scared Kohberger. Kohberger knew how small the community is, and the distance between the resident house there on 1122 King Road and the police station, and he probably had a couple minutes to get out of there. The reason why I think he spared Dylan is because she yelled, and he assumed she called police. And so he assumed he needed to get out of there extremely quickly. And so that's my theory as to why he didn't, attack Dylan in that moment. But Dylan goes, locks the door, probably afraid because the guy's wearing a mask and all dark clothing, by verified sources from, or supposedly verified sources. I think it was off of Reddit. I'm not sure. But I had saw that I think it was a sister-in-law from Ethan had came forward and stated that that she had called everybody in the house, and before calling the neighbor. I think that happened a couple times. I think that happened that night after the incident. My assumption is that maybe Bethany answered the phone and said, yeah, whatever, right, I heard something, or maybe I didn't hear anything, I was asleep. But I think that gave Dylan a little bit of false security to just go lay down. And then the next morning, still kind of freaked out about what happened, tried to call everybody, called Bethany again, told Bethany this time what she saw. Bethany was afraid to go upstairs. Maybe she left, and that's why the door was open. I don't know. But I think at that point, they realized that something nefarious had occurred. And it's still weird that they didn't call the police. Instead, they called the neighbor. A hunter comes over. He ends up going upstairs, discovering the bodies. Now, according to Ashley Banfield, Hunter's the one that ended up, or the best friend of Ethan. We suspect it being Hunter Johnson. He's the one who ends up calling 911 off of Dylan's phone. And we talked about it last night. One thing I can think of is that, Dylan was probably a little bit frantic at this point. Nobody's still answering the phone. And she contacts neighbor, says somebody was in the house and I can't get anybody to open the door. This is Ethan's best friend, so he jumps up, runs outside, probably forgets his phone. And that's the reason why he's having to use Dylan's phone to call the police. And so I think this picture is getting a little bit more clear. Still am a little bit concerned about the amount of evidence. Like I said, I think they got the guy. I think they got the right guy. I'm more concerned about, do they have enough to put him away? I think there's some questions, and I think there's some holes in this case. Very circumstantial. The only thing that slightly puts him in that home is the DNA on the sheath, which really doesn't really put him in the home. It just puts that sheath in his possession at one point, and so it'd be a lot different if his DNA was on a wall or on the rail, walking down the stairs or on the property somewhere. But if his DNA only falls on that sheath, that leads me to believe that, it's going to be difficult. He can come up with some story to make up why he had that in his possession. It got stolen, something of that nature. He found a knife, he turned it in. I don't know. But it's it's a very circumstantial case, and I'm a little bit concerned about it. We also had a poll last night, and on that poll, it was, do you think that Bryan Kohberger did this alone, or had an accomplice? And more than half believe he did, out of over 1,000 people that entered that contest. That's crazy. That's scary, And I think it was like, not more than half. I'm sorry. The majority was that he had an accomplice. I think it was like 44% or 47% had accomplice, 40 something else percent he didn't, and then it was like 10% that he's innocent. And so, when you add that into him having an accomplice or not being involved, that's majority of the folks that were in our live chat last night, based on the evidence that's out there. That's not good. That's not good. But again, we don't have it all. There's the possibility that they have some smoking gun material that they're holding on to close to the chest, or close to the vest. I'm sorry. But that's all I got for you guys. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Hitting that like button helps get the algorithm going. This is probably going to get limited or demonetized just based on the words that I use to describe this incident. And, it's okay. The problem with it is that it limits the viewers, right? And so in order to get that pushed out to more people, we got to enact the algorithm. So if you don't mind just hitting that like button, subscribing if you're not already, I appreciate everybody. We'll be live tomorrow. Let me know in the comment section. Do you guys think that Bethany, this is all she has? There's really no information there. Do you guys think that there's a lot more in that outside of that probable cause affidavit? I'm starting not to. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. With that being said, I'm Daniel J. This is the Drunk Turkey Show. We'll see you tomorrow night. Peace.